All right, hello YouTube, good to see you, and hello also Instagram, good to be going live here. Hello over on Facebook, hopefully you're going to be live in a second. But yeah, great to see everyone here on Startup Business Q&A episode 107. So I love it. I love that we've got so many under our belt now. So just checking everyone is live. Yes, we're live. There's so many cameras and microphones now, wires everywhere. To be honest, I could have done it all out of one phone, but let's keep the battery going, right? So so Startup Business Q&A episode 107. I'm particularly excited about this one because I am focusing today on sales. So that is the theme today. If you have any questions relating to sales in your startup business, then here's a place to put it in. As always, thanks so much. Always, first of all, it's Instagram. Everyone jumping in to say hi. And hello on Facebook as well. Hope you guys can see me okay. The angle's a bit funny. Tell me on Instagram if you're listening, can you hear okay? I've got no microphone in there, just using the phone. But otherwise, everything's using proper cameras. So I hope that works all right. And Facebook, hopefully you can see okay. You've not got too much of my other screen in the way. So let's try and see if we can get that back online again. Let's try that. So yeah, you're probably going to see a little bit of a screen there. Let me fix that. Just trying to get live with everything, all this kit. So good questions already coming through on Instagram. Mr. Pusat, hello. You've asked here, is it smart to loan money? Well, it depends on who you're loaning it to, of course. I have loaned money before, but I think you should do it in a structured way where there's a solid agreement behind it. So what I'm trying to say here, so I'm just organizing screens. What I'm trying to say here is make sure if you're loaning money that there are good terms in place. I loaned money once to a guy. It was less of a loan, more of a capital investment. And the idea behind it was that it was a case of saying, right, if I give you this much, we signed terms and everything. If I give you this much, at the end of this amount of time, you will pay me back this much money. And in return, you get to keep this much money. And that's what I did. And it seemed to work very, very well because there was no, problems with clarity there. So I think loaning money should be done in a structured way because it's like investing in capital to someone. Just giving money, you need to have lots of trust in that person. And this particular instance, I was trusting that person quite a lot. So I wanted to make absolutely sure I did that because on face value, some people might have a good story or reason why you lend the money, but actually it's not necessarily wise to do. Hopefully we're going to get live okay on Facebook. If you are on Facebook, let me know with a thumbs up. But otherwise, let's get started. So questions here. I don't want to go too long today. I'm doing a big campaign at the moment with Europcar, which is good fun. I've just got a lot of footage to shoot. So I'm going to keep it down to 5 or 6 questions and see how we go. If you have a question about sales, then anything about sales or selling or communicating, then do put information here. If this is your first time seeing me, my name's Richard Moore. I've been selling for almost 16 years now in various guises. Back in the turn of the century, I was selling digital marketing online, so a very, very long time ago in relation to the internet, all the way through to now selling events of my own and also a lot of consultancy and online courses and products and things like that. So if you have a question related to that kind of thing, then fine. One of the things I do a lot of with my consulting business is I actually coach and train corporates in London. And one thing that comes out of that is that there's a big focus these days on those that have a great message, have a great product, but they are perhaps unable to sell because they're not enabling themselves. Maybe they're a little bit shy or introverted. And I work a lot with people like that. So that's very interesting to me. Any questions along those lines, then let me know. So let's get stuck into the first question here. And again, if you have any questions, say on Facebook, hello, Facebook finally live, then do let me know on sales today. So first question is from Abjit Joshi. He's asked, Richard, if done correctly, do you think cold calling is still effective considering the rise of social media? 100% is still effective. I'm going to a company tomorrow and another one in London on Wednesday, and both of them are businesses that employ cold calling techniques, and they absolutely are fine. They're multi-million pound businesses. One's an 8-figure business, one's a 9-figure business, and they use cold calling and have done for decades. if done correctly, it is effective. What you've got to understand is that people are sold to that much more these days because they're sold to by stuff on their phone as well. So it is seen by many as quite archaic to use the phone, but I think there's an important consideration here. And what that is that, I mean, to answer your second point, considering the rise of social media, the social media thing, unless you're really good and you know what you're doing and you can move fast, is typically not a short-term play. In fact, when I was setting up my consulting business many years ago, rather than social media, I was directly messaging people and getting them the call and then closing them. Because here's the thing, the beauty of cold calling is that if you need money now, like if you need cash today, then it's probably the most effective, but not efficient, but the most effective way of getting it. 25 minutes spent with a decision maker, saying the right things, giving them reasons and great value, and then presenting an offer, which is then closed, money received, and so on, is the most effective way of making money. And if you're stuck or you need money, then that's the way I would do it. That's how I started. I would have 20, I set myself a task of every day I had 20 new conversations a day. Hello, everyone jumping in on Instagram. So I'm trying to say hi to you all. 20 new conversations a day, every single one of those direct messaging conversations through things like Facebook. What I would then do is I would, warm them up, talk about value, sell to them, and then I would move them over to a call where I then close them. And that was tremendously effective because it was enabling me to get money then and there. And, when I'd left work and I was building a Taekwondo academy and that was taking time, but I wanted to make sure I was getting money straight away. I was able to take someone from zero to a call and then a close right away. With social media, in the main, it takes longer than that, right? You have to warm up an audience a bit more. And if you want that kind of passive inbound, which I have a lot of, for instance, through Instagram, Facebook, and definitely through LinkedIn, that takes time because you've got to build that familiarity and trust. So done correctly, cold calling is very effective at it because if you can get someone on side with a strong value proposition to begin with, if you can impress on that person that you have some great value, and then of course build trust and familiarity, of course they will buy. But with social media, I think it's intelligent to have that as a play alongside as well. And that's what I do these days. I've now shifted really to, I don't do cold calling or pitching. I have a lot of inbounds, and as a result, I then have warmer people. But with social media, it's insane to not use it. And what's fascinating is that both businesses I'm seeing this week and many that I see regularly have started making use of social media a bit more. If you're a corporation or some kind of well-established business and you don't use social media, even now at this late stage in 2018, if you do it properly, you are a mile ahead of the curve because most people don't actually use it effectively, and they just kind of stick something up and click post and hopefully it will work out. It doesn't tend to work so well. So I think it's essential to make sure you're using both is the answer, as with most things. Okay. So this is Start Business Q&A episode 107 on sales. So any sales technique questions, do ask me. Those of you who are in London, hands up if you are, or give me a thumbs up. In London right now, we are putting together, or we're running to put together an event on the 12th of September. This is Entrepreneur Business Live. On the 12th of September, that event is going to be spectacular. We've got Toph Evans, who is he's climbed Everest. He's an ultramarathon runner. He's running 340 kilometers in a few days' time across Scotland. He's going to come down and talk about resilience at the event. We've got Rebecca Godfrey. More announcements on her soon on Facebook and LinkedIn. She's been working with big pharma businesses, with pharmacovigilance, and she now focuses in heavily on leadership training for executives in that space. Very, very valuable lessons from her. And we've got Kevin Lee as well, who's an executive director at Visa. So some serious heavy hitters. I'll be speaking as well. But the tickets are only 15 quid and 10% of every single ticket will go to the charity we're working with, GT Scholars. There'll be networking as well. But if you're available, go to my website, therichardmoore.com. And there's free beer. It's 2.5 hours of solid networking and great speakers curated by us all. If you can't make it, but know someone in London, let them know about this. But otherwise, in the Entrepreneur Business Group on Facebook, you can join there. and you'll be able to watch the stream completely free of charge because you're a member. So it's a big perk for you guys. On to the next question. If you have anything related to startup businesses and sales, do ask me. Hello, Zach. Hello, Chris. Hello, Bob. Hello, Jerry. Hello, Christine, all on Facebook. Thanks for joining us today. Next question is from Kurt Magadante, who, big shout out to him, is in Italy, I believe now. He was in France this week and he was in London last week. He's basically been enjoying being in Europe over from South Carolina. We ran a great event last week on Tuesday, and if you're in the Entrepreneur Business Group, you better see the replay of that. It's called Power and Purpose, and I went up on stage to talk a bit about sales with him, so that was good fun. He said, Richard, if you rely on inbound sales and marketing, it can be up and down. So thumbs up if you found that. If you're relying on inbound sales and marketing, has it been up and down for you? How can you bring more certainty and consistency even to that inbound sales cycle? So there are two things to think about. Firstly, the message you put out that promotes that inbound is usually through your content. You need to make sure that signal is as pure as possible. So what I'm saying here is you're constantly beating the drum about giving great value about the space you're in. If I work in sales coaching, I should be giving out tips and value all the time, every day at least, about great ideas and things you could try, practical applications, great value, so people feel really like they're getting a lot from me in the sales tip world. What's essential after that is to make sure that I have asks in my content as well. Don't do at the start, the value is there, and then at the bottom, PS, if you want this, then let me know. You know, because the crazy thing is, you might think it is intuitive for someone to find out about you and then ask you for help, but many people don't. And so often it's a good idea to tell them. If you want more, so I do it at the end of my videos, for instance, on LinkedIn. If you want more, after the 2 minutes of epic value, if you want more, go to therichardmoore.com, at which point they can find their way very easily to intuitively to buying something if they must. And I think that it's exciting to do it that way, but yes, it can be up and down. And if you have your ask in there fairly regularly, it does work very well. The thing you need to think about though is sitting back and passively waiting for these inbounds isn't always a good idea. Part of the way in which social media can be done effectively, or is done effectively, is by working with your community. This is way more important than the content you put out, seriously. Some people have very high production level in their content, but it doesn't mean that they're actually any good at generating results. It's because they're not working their community. So you need to spend time there as well. And that's the most important part of it. And the same goes here. I mean, what I would be suggesting is if you put out great content, those that engage with your content, okay, organically finding it and then passively checking it out, then maybe deciding to actively send a message or something like that, as in a comment on the post. Those are people you then need to take to the next step, Kurt. These are people you maybe are doing direct messaging with. Hey, John, or hey, Kurt, thanks so much for engaging with that piece of content. That really means a lot to me. How's your week going? Something like that. Start conversation. This is, as I said earlier today, this is what I was doing a lot earlier, many years ago. I was putting out content. Anyone ever engage in anything, what I would do is I would then, say hello, say thank you. Kurt, we're answering your question right now. It's a good time in jumping on Facebook. And what we would then do is we would move through these stages. So they're receiving my content. They're giving out something, maybe a like or a comment or engaging or sharing or something. But then I validate their decision to engage, which is me, a direct message saying thanks, maybe a video, because wow, that isn't that unique, right? Or a voice message or something like that. So you send these things out, and what then happens is that they start getting conversations. Imagine doing 20 a day. 20 a day isn't too much. It's crazy. You can get through 20 new connections and conversations each day. And then across a month, you've done a lot. Think about it, you've done 600 now. Once you've got those DMs chugging away, some will want to take it further. We'll get to that in a second, but someone want to take it further, and that becomes a call. And then, of course, those inbound can be, for me, an inbound was actually someone writing a message saying, hey, this is great. It's just a little nibble. It's not someone saying, hi, could you give me the rates for you doing some work, please? I think what we like is inbounds that are absolutely polished and they've done all the work for you. They're nice to have. You don't get them all the time though. What people think is often, and this isn't you, Kurt, necessarily, this is what I feel, is that a huge amount of people think, I can't get any leads, I don't have any leads. It's like they're right in front of you. They're all the people who have liked all of your content. They're all the people who are writing any comments. They're all the people that gave you a thumbs up and said, that's really great. What you need to do is recognize that they are also hot leads. They're also inbounds. They're just slightly further back down the conveyor belt. So you need to work with them, give them a bit more value, help them out, get in conversation, find out what it is they're after, maybe go and help them, and then in return you'll start getting these cues from them. Hey, that's really good, I never looked at it that way, something like that, and now I can close these people off or take them to another level. And that's the way I would do it. So certainty and consistency. Hey, you know what, you probably have enough anyway. It's just that we want to work with just the cream. I get that. We want to work with the people who have closed themselves already. Hi Richard, I've been watching your stuff for 2 months. I've closed myself. I've got money to give you. I want to buy something, please, can you help? Of course we want those ones, but what about the ones who are like, wow, this was really interesting, or I love your stuff, Richard? I mean, people like that, people who've followed you through several posts, what do you think that suggests? It suggests they're choosing to tune into your channel again and again. What that means in turn is that there's someone who's showing interest. You need to qualify them, sure, they might not have any money, or they might not have any inclination, they might just like your vibe, but if there's an angle there, then you should be looking at speaking to this person. It's very important. Just want to say hey to everyone jumping in here. I can't pronounce half the names on Instagram, but Fraser's there, Zach, Kurt. Hello, Kurt has written on Facebook, going to watch this later. Right now I'm sipping wine across from the Pantheon in Paris. I'm a bit jealous of you, mate. And Fraser, good to see you here. Looking forward to speaking to you on Thursday. Question from Zach Houston on Facebook, and hi over there on the other camera to YouTube as well. Same old question. Generating qualified leads starts with good client avatar, but how do you create one when you don't yet know how to decide what that is? I sell custom software to people that can afford it. That's too broad to market to. So how do you refine this? And most importantly, how do you make sure the message is correct? So Zach, what I would be doing if I was you is I would be broadcasting through content the value-laden tips. It's stunning how you can put out a 42-second tip about software, something that people might want to learn about, and you can place that out there. And if you work with your audience enough, if you engage with people, if you find people out there, find 5 people a day that are relevant to your space, who are bigger than you, those that don't sell your product but are relevant to software, maybe those who have got just double the followers, nothing mad, you're not looking to connect with Kim Kardashian or something, not that she should be relevant to software so much, but someone who's a little bit higher up the chain than you. Engage with them, say hi, have a quick call. I would recommend 2 to 3 video calls per week. Warm these people up and have that relationship and that connection get validated. Get this person saying to you, hey, you're a good person. What then happens is then when you put out your next bit of content, they show up. And when they show up, they start writing more comments. And you know what happens then? Then their friends or their network start showing up. All of a sudden, like the video that I did a video on LinkedIn. I think it was on Saturday I put it out. It's 15,000 views, over 250 likes, and like 120 comments. That's because the person I engaged with, I'd had a call with, and I'd been a decent bloke, and I'd worked that part of the relationship rather than sticking out content hoping it works. By putting out tips all the time and by putting out little bits of value, little nuggets of information that help give a pure signal about the thing you do to the right set of people, what happens is that the right people start gravitating towards you. Do it often enough. It doesn't need to take long. It took me like a few weeks on LinkedIn just to keep doing this every single day. What happens is it becomes very clear that, do you know what? Zach Houston doesn't do this, but Zach Houston is your guy for this. If you want custom software, it's this guy. And I remember it was after about 4 weeks of posting on LinkedIn. I only started in March actually posting in earnest. It was about 4 weeks in, and I saw my name had been tagged in not a comment but in a post, and someone was writing about me and something they'd seen. I was like, it's starting to happen. Then people start tagging you saying, hey, you should check this person out. Richard Moore is relevant for this. And you just got to keep sending out the right signal. So I'm not the right guy for this or for that or for this, but I am the right guy for that. And you keep putting that signal out. Then again, what happens is you end up with people starting to come to you, messaging you, hey, let's jump on a call, things like that. Let's look at the end of your question, Zach. How do you refine this? And most importantly, make sure the message is correct. You put out the signal about the kind of stuff you do, and it will bring the kind of people you want to work with. For instance, you mentioned here you work with people who have who can afford it. So you're not interested in working with people who have no money, who go to maybe Fiverr.com. You're interested in working with people who have, several thousand quid to spend on your website, on website development or something like that. So you talk about those kind of things you do. You talk about the premium service you offer. You talk about why you work in the premium space, what it is you bring to offer. I've worked in this space for 20 years. As a result, I've worked with this company and this company. Got a great email this morning, actually, from a chap who started up a digital agency, and I'm like, great, yet another agency pitching me. And then he had a link to his website. I was like, I wouldn't have clicked on it unless in the message he'd said, we're working with people like this, this, and this. And there were some really well-known brands. So I was like, okay, you got the click. You made me click on your link onto your website to check it out to see if you're legit, because you work with some really, really serious businesses. And I was quite impressed. I didn't want to buy anything. I don't need it. But if you get 400 people do that, someone will. It's as simple as that, really. So, this is important. Refine your message, and then you'll get the right people coming to like you and click on you. And of course, there'll be a load of people who can't buy anything and who aren't quite relevant. And there'll be some people, Zach, who just like Zach Hooson, who think you're a great guy, who like the South Africa thing, or who live in the Isle of Man, or who are IT guys and just want to follow you, If you look at Linus Tech Tips, which is I don't know if you probably follow it. It's a YouTube channel I'm really keen on. I follow that. I probably watched that, one of the top 5 YouTube channels, because I don't watch much at all, but they're the ones I watch. And have affiliate links everywhere. I've never bought a single thing from them, but I'm interested because it keeps me abreast of tech, which is a personal interest, just as an enthusiast. I'm not going to buy anything, but for every one of me, there'll be a load of people who do buy stuff. So you just got to recognize you're working in the larger numbers as well. Keep that message nice and clear. I think that your message can work, custom software to people that can afford it. I think that you need to talk about the type of custom software, and it will nail things down a bit more. If you're really, really clear, niche down a bit, you'll get a result that way. So, great question. Hope that helps. Let's just say hi to everyone else watching. Hello to Gus. Hello to Rebecca. Hello, everyone over on LinkedIn. Sorry, Instagram, who's jumping in as well. I swear, one day, it's got to happen. One day, LinkedIn's got to have a live function on video, and then it's just all over. I mean, I can't wait. And I have to get a 4th camera then. That'd be ridiculous. But there we are. Let's move on. A couple more questions. So one from Ever Heard here, who came to one of my events recently. So nice to see you there. Richard, for me and my business, everything is about building relationships and trust. So maybe it would be good to cover, when is the best time to go in with the offer? When is the right time to change from giving free advice to help to the time to sell? Well, if you get the Monetize You course available from the richardmoore.com under the products tab, then you'll know the answer to this, because this guides you through it. Plugs aside, the short version is you need to look for what's called a queue. And the reason why I call it a queue is because the person you're engaged with is giving you a cue that now's an okay to reach out. Okay, over on Instagram, take it easy. Yes, now that was a very good question. You're right. What we're doing here is we're warming up an audience. That should be our first step, is to always warm up first. Okay, not ask straight away. People hate to be sold to. You may have the best product in the world, but it's a turn off if you start with, hey, would you like to buy this or check this? Well, I've got a great offer. It's awful. It's cringy. It doesn't work. If you get results, then you could get way better, more efficient results. It's just not a good idea. And if you take that approach, what's happening is you're turning off a volume of people that you could otherwise work with. I tend to be like, not interested by default, and the majority do the same, just because you've come at me with an offer straight away. It's just a bad approach, okay? So it's far more effective to look at this idea of warming up an audience and then saying, right, I need to map back from what I want. What I want is for that person to say, yeah, I'd like to buy something. In order for that to happen, I need to be asking the question, would you like to buy something? But how can I get to that place? I need to move to a place of receptivity. What that means is I give value, but how do I know? This is really what the crux of what Eva's asking. How do I know if the value I'm giving enables me, or rather, to use my term, it has earned me the right, okay, to now ask them to come buy something or give them an offer. The cue is actually the form of a compliment. This works best on things like DM or on a call with someone. What I would always look for is for someone to say to me, do you know what, Richard? I never looked at it that way. Or that's a really good point. Or something like that. Or, wow, you've been so helpful. Thank you so much. When you get a compliment, that's you earning the right. A compliment validates that the value you've given someone is now moving the relationship to a place where you could ask for something. If you're not confident doing this, go for 2 compliments, which means 2 cues from them, 2 occasions. So in your head, you're like, okay, box 1 ticked. I've had that person just say to me, wow, this value you're giving me, that message you just wrote, that really changed my world, or something like that. Let's go for another one. When you give them some more value, you give them some more ideas, you connect them with someone, something like that. And then they say, do you know what, I feel like you've done so much for me. Thank you so much. You are now in a position where they have high receptivity. You can ask, and you won't get them going, whoa, what are you trying to do? Because you've earned the right. They've given you the cue. So look for those compliments. How do you get the compliments? You earn them by giving great value first. And if you give enough value, it's classic stuff, right? You get out what you put in. If you really work for it, if you give someone some value, and sometimes that's a little nugget of information that makes all the difference, you can ask them for anything. Because what it's creating is almost this kind of debt situation where they feel they owe you. And what it is when you leverage the owing or the debt to ask them something, they're cool with it. Because do you know what? You totally earn the right when you just helped me with that thing. Do you see what I mean? So that's the short version on how you do it. You can then ask a question like, would you like to explore what it would look like if we did some work together, or why don't we talk some more on the phone call? Like I said on Kurt's question, you have these people showing an interest in your content. So go DM them. Hey, thanks so much. Oh, I love that post, Richard. Thanks. I loved how you said this. Okay, what is it? What was it about that really resonated? And I'm in a conversation now. And then we're like, oh, it's just thank you so much for speaking with me. It really matters. And then I can ask, well, would you like to, are you free for a call right now? I'd love to hop online and have a chat. Now I'm building my familiarity and trust. Now I'm taking it from a like or a comment through to a DM. Now on a call with the person. You could never get a more receptive person than one who's been watching and keen on your content through to that stage. So that's the process. That's the one that works for me very, very well. Let's move on to the next question. In fact, there's another one here from Ever Heard. If you liked this question, I think this next one's really good. She's asked, overcoming obstacles like, I can't afford it. How do you do that? Or the worst, I will think about it and let you know. What that represents is phenomenal feedback. If someone says to you something like, okay, great, thanks, I'll let you know, or, I can't really afford that. If you've qualified that person, you should pre-qualify all of these people you're going to engage with, that they have enough money, ideally, that they're in the market for it, that there's perhaps a need as well. They're giving you that feedback. You've used the word obstacles. Some people use the word objections. If you call it feedback, what's really happening is someone's actually been interested enough to engage with you for a little while. What they're basically saying is your value's not good enough. Okay, it's great feedback because it's something you can control. Really simple, really, really simple. There's not enough value. Okay, so if someone said, oh yeah, I'll get back to you, unless there's a genuine reason for it, and rarely there is, what it actually means is you're not compelling enough. The thing you've been offering, it doesn't grab me. Maybe there's not enough urgency. More likely there's not enough value. Or maybe there's enough value, but there's not enough trust. Go look at your spam inboxes. All of you, go check after this. Go check your junk email. And what you'll see is loads of things where you've won the lottery or something like that. And if only you'd release $5,000 to them, to release the money as an admin fee, you'll get your winnings. It's all a load of rubbish. Okay, the reason why it doesn't work is there's no trust. Simple as that. And so, it's just not enough value. And it's really important feedback. If someone's like, okay, yeah, thanks. You know what? Why don't you just send it in a proposal and I'll think about it and get back to you. Either you've got the wrong person because that person's saying, send an email because I have to go up the chain and pitch the real decision maker. You're pitching the wrong guy. Or it's, I'm not that bothered. And if I'm not that bothered because your value's not really good enough, well then, you know what? I'll throw it on the pile. And if I get a chance, I'll think about it. It means you screwed it up. You need to work a bit harder. Go back in, build some more value. Be honest. I used to say, you know what? It feels like you're not really, I've pretty lost you somewhere or dropped the ball. What is it we're missing? Is it really worth sending you anything? It feels like this should be something you're chomping my arm off that, but actually perhaps we should leave it. What do you think? And if they say, no, I'm really interested, well then I'm okay. If they're like, yeah, go on then it means that actually I probably was nowhere. Do you see what I mean? So think about that. I can't afford it. It's never the money, ever. The only time it's the money is that they genuinely don't have the money, but they do. Because people have the money for things they want to buy. Most people don't have $3,000 lying around. But if there was a Lamborghini outside that is theirs legitimately for 3,000 quid or dollars, whatever, they suddenly would find 3,000. They would like, I need that, I'll find that, and that's the end of it. You make money and you make time for things you really need. And if someone doesn't feel that it's compelling enough, they just won't bother. Because you're against competition. Your competitors are actually, there's three things you are competing against. Buying your product is one thing they could do. What they could also do is buy a competitor's product. But you're also competing against other things. You're competing against them doing nothing because nothing's compelling enough, or you're competing against them just spending their money on something else. The Entrepreneur Business Club on Facebook, the premium club, where we have people collaborating and really working together, is really powerful club, which is growing nicely already. It works out to be 30 cents a day, $9.97 a month. That's it. But people still won't spend that if they're not bothered. And yet they'll throw that money away on, a chocolate bar in the moment because their emotional state's being like, oh, I'm weak, I want some sugar, So people will spend the money, but maybe not be on your thing. So if you're not compelling enough, that's when you get the weak things like that. Being more practical, if someone genuinely means it ever, if they're like, you know what, I want to do this, I just can't afford it. So then open up. So what could you afford? What are we missing here? At what level does it need to be? It's easier to do that. I've got past the stage when I was trying to game people too much in negotiation, because if you're good enough, you'll get more customers anyway. And I just think, if you say to someone, so what would be the best price, and they're like, more like this, you're like, all right then. Or, maybe make it a bit more intelligent, like a bit higher. Or if they just don't have the money at all, or they can only afford a pithy amount, do you know what? Let's just leave it then. Because what are you after here? Unless you're desperate and you have to pay rent tonight, well then take it. So it's circumstances. And I think we're very quick to take any money when in fact it's not really worth it, because for some customers, you have to put a lot of work in. I actually had someone I was working with recently who was saying this. They had someone that the price point for their product was $3,000 a month, but this person earned that much gross per month, right? And that person maybe could have afforded $500 a month. And the person she was speaking to actually was so overwhelming, the amount of messaging and nappy changing he needed. I said, look at this person. Firstly, you're getting a sixth of the amount you've asked for, and you're getting someone who is so needy that unless you're desperately wanting to help that person, or desperately need the cash so much you have to say yes because you just have to. Bad customer, because that's going to be less than minimum wage, the amount of money you actually make in return for the work you put in. So you got to weigh up whether or not that's worth it. A few questions coming through here. I'm just going to look back on Instagram. So Zach Houston, trying to look around one of the other cameras. Sorry, Facebook. Following on from the value statement in a lost sale, how do you recover that sale versus learning from it from the next one? Great question. So if someone says no, they're given a load of value and someone says, no, thanks, I'm all right. The problem that most people will create for themselves is they say, oh, well, no worries. and that's it. And that's it. You never hear from the guy again. That's the like end of conversation. It's a mistake, because what you're doing now is broadcasting. Do you know what? I was only interested in your money. And now that you've said no, I'm going to leave it. And all that value wasn't genuine. All that value I was giving was to create a leverage point where I want to get some money. Well, kind of, yeah, but you should also be looking for a relationship as well. I strongly feel if someone said no to you, but you've pre-qualified them and they're definitely right for you, but it's not the right time perhaps, so stay close. Say, okay, no worries at all, and then throw some more value at them, you know. Just, well, in the meantime, let's do this, or what about this? Keep the conversation going, because it creates this situation where they're like, do you know what? We didn't do the sale right then, but actually we're still having a good conversation, and we had that before. So it would make them subconsciously feel a little bit worried about you. If you kind of just switch off altogether because you're no longer, because they've said no momentarily. Yes, you're learning from it. Usually you have to give it. For me, I usually ask when it's so obvious that they're going to buy. So when I get on a call with someone, they're basically closed themselves already. I've got them to suggest certain things and say certain things that suggest to me this is a deal already. Some people have already paid before we get on the call. So I want it to be super hot to the point where it's like it's a done deal. And it's just the formality of engaging with each other that way. I don't want to leave myself too much work to do. So give an overwhelming amount of value. It's a better way of closing them off. Good point there, Zach. Let's stick it down. There's another question further down. Zach Houston as well. Competition. So I'm trying to see past it. Competition. Not the other competitors, which in my industry is the big one, is doing it themselves. I don't quite understand your question. Apologise. Let's look over on Facebook. Ian Tisker's asked, what is your sales approach between a customer and a business? Let's get clear here. So sorry if I misunderstand. What's your sales approach between a customer and a business? I'm pushing some high ticket items to companies and finding a lot of trouble closing them. I don't quite understand what you mean by what's your approach between a customer and a business. I think what you might be asking me is, it's hard to close companies with high ticket items. Do you know it's the same for all of this stuff? If someone thinks there's enough value, they buy. If they're not keen, it's either because it's the wrong person, they're not qualified enough lead, or you've just not got enough value. It's really as simple as that. And I think that's relevant to the last question I had over here. Yeah, there is. So hold that thought, Ian, because this is a relevant one as well. Eileen Kelly, how can I attract higher paying clients for selling my paintings? So she's a painter. Thanks, I really enjoy being part of the group. No worries. So it's positioning, you know. If you're unknown as a premium producer of a service or a product by the audience you're trying to sell to, then you're going to have a hard time, because you have to warm them up and work on it individually. It's quite hard to do. This is where it comes back to cold calling at the start, Ian. So if you approach a company cold, you're at 0. And in fact, if you approach them at cold, you're at a negative place, because they're like, oh, it's cold call. I'm going to feel like I'm lacking receptivity here. What you want to be thinking is, how do I get this company to feel good about me in general, and therefore be in a place of receptivity when I actually engage with them? The way you do it is you position yourself well. So perhaps like that email I received earlier from that digital agency is like, here are some of the clients I work with, so some social proof. You know, if I look at, it's fascinating. I'm working out on a marketing campaign at the moment with Europe Car, which has involved them giving me to use a Mercedes GLE coupe. This is a V6, 250 horsepower, 3-litre engine. It's outrageous. It's like, it's got this white leather everywhere. Everything it's like driving a spaceship, and it's vast. It's like a bus. This thing is huge. Seriously premium car. And they said, when we were choosing the cars, they're like, so we've got the Qashqai, which is like, you know, the most average car, where there's a Volvo, which stereotypically is more aligned with a different type of audience to me, or there's this Mercedes. They're like, well, the Mercedes. And the moment you position yourself as someone who's driving this car, suddenly the reaction of people changes. And I've been really clear as well that all along that it's a marketing campaign, and it's not my car. I'm not pretending or anything. But if you position yourself in the right way, it really makes a big difference. So what I'm saying here, Ian, is look at the businesses you want to work with. If you want to ask for a high ticket item, look at it from their perspective. Do you come across as high street or high ticket? You know, how do you look? How do you look for them? Do they want a certain type of thing? So they, have you got a premium proposition? Can you deliver it? Are you creating a situation where they're thinking, I just don't trust this guy. He doesn't seem to scream premium at me. And that's a subjective thing. I get it. And I know that's not the way it should be, but get over it. That's life. That's what humans are like. They make judgments. If you go into a corporate and they're all in their suits, you better dress well. You better speak in a certain way as well. You need to present in a certain way. You need to be armed with reasons why you are premium. I spoke to someone recently about this, and they were positioning themselves at a very, very high-end price for their service. And they said, I had problems closing someone because they said, so have you done this before? And they said, no, you'd be my first customer. It's like, why am I going to buy from you then? Because you don't, you've got no experience or skin in the game. It's like you need to be able to back yourself up by having social proof, testimonials, things like that, but also being able to say, I'm worth this much, and here's why. Here's the value you're going to get. That really matters. Okay. I hope that helps, Ian. I hope he answered your question because I was unclear. And Eileen Kelly saying here, you're unknown by high-paying potential clients for your paintings. So you need to get your paintings in front of high-end people. How do I get well-known on LinkedIn? How do I get Toth Evans to speak at my event? Is because I position myself with people at his level and around him. Okay, so I spoke to him, but the only way he's going to have time to speak to me is because if it's worth it for him, which means I've spoken to people around him. I've worked my way up. I'm not a nobody who's asking this high-end person to speak with me. Instead, I was always leveling up. I was always trying to engage with people who are a higher level than me, and as they pulled me up, they went higher and higher. And as a result, Nat Rizzo, who I was having a call with the other day and produced some content with, she has 1/3 very, very active followers on LinkedIn. I had another email today from someone who has over 650,000 followers on LinkedIn asking me a question. Positioning is everything. Okay, so you can send out the message about you being quality. You know what? A bit of production here and there on videos, for example, that kind of thing makes a difference as well. Coffee with Kyle's, hello, nice to see you on Instagram. But hopefully that helps. That really is important because, and what I would be doing to be practical here for you, I would be going to the kinds of people that you'd want to buy your paintings, and I would be saying to them, what do you think of my paintings? Because the likelihood is you're sitting there with great intent and wonderful paintings, and they're over there with all their money and a keenness for great paintings, but there's been no connection made. And the problem is that a lot of us want to do nothing unless it results in results in a sale of a high ticket client. Do you know what? Sometimes you have to give someone something. Maybe you go a little low end to begin with. I've done it in the past where I said, you know what, I'll give you 2 weeks. For some people I really wanted to work with, I'll work with you for 2 weeks completely free. Because I know the impact's going to be so big. And then afterwards, when they're like, breathlessly saying, I can't live without you. It's like, great. So this is, you can see why I charge what I do. This is, now you can't live without me. Here's the price and let's go. You take a small hit. So putting out a bit, I think, Eileen, that you need to ask yourself, am I engaged enough in the space where people look at these kind of paintings? Am I speaking to people in galleries? Am I looking online? Look at Instagram. Look at the people who are producing paintings in your kind of field. Do some collabs with them as well. So I'm just drawing my paper. Also speak to people who are art collectors. What do you think about this? Oh, I love this. I think it's a great picture. Would you buy it? No, I'm not in the market for right now. So then what you do, doesn't matter if they didn't buy it, you say, you post about it, was in touch with Saatchi and Saatchi, and they said they loved my picture. How amazing. Then a bit of proof, copy and paste the evidence from your email, for example. Do you see what I mean? Court the people that would buy your product, or court the people who have the ear of the people who would buy your product. Otherwise, you're sitting back and hoping they'll come to you. It's important to go out and engage in that way. Go to some art fairs and talk about your pictures. Bring an iPad so you're armed with them. What do you think? You're not looking for a buyer necessarily. You're looking to move out of obscurity. So if you look at some people who've really done well in this space, like epically well, look at Phil Knight and look at Damon John. So Phil Knight, who founded Nike, and Damon John, who founded Fubu. Okay, so these are perfect examples. Damon John's a really good example of someone. He wrote a book called Power of Brokers, but perfect example of someone who was taking his clothes, his FUBU shirts, and things, would wear them to a restaurant. Then he'd say to someone, like to the waitress, "What do you think of this?" And he'd just be getting opinions. He'd go outside a stadium, open up the a suitcase, and be selling them to people. He would wear his merchandise all the time. There's someone I know on LinkedIn actually, and the only stuff that she posts is her paintings. So what she does, Eileen, is every day she posts another piece of art. I think they're really good actually. Even if I'm not going to buy anything, the reality is I have thousands of followers, and in there might be some people who are like, wow, I have got to get some of this, and I'm in the market and I've got the money, let's go. So you need to broadcast that you have these paintings. Thinking about it isn't enough. Share them with the right kind of people and see what their reaction is. The feedback might be overwhelmingly, do you know what, that's just no good. It doesn't mean that you're never going to sell anything, but it maybe means that you might need to look at the photos and how you do them, or maybe you need to look at a slightly different audience as well. But I think it's important to get them in front of the eyeballs of the right people. And that person on LinkedIn, I forget her name now. I think she's from Eastern Europe somewhere. Is the perfect example of someone who knows that if she engaged with me. It's like, hi, how you doing? Good to I like what you do and things like that. And it means that she shows up on my news feed. And every so often I'm like, wow, emotionally, I really like that picture. I can't help liking it and writing, well, it's really nice. And if that happens, LinkedIn goes, oh, maybe I'll show this to some of Richard's connections. You see what I mean? So think hard about that. Be more calculated about not just what you're posting, but to whom. Engage with contacts in a very careful way, because they may be people you can leverage. Hold your breath as well. You're not always trying to sell to everyone. You're sometimes trying to leverage their network. So that's valuable too. Okay. If someone has attention of an audience, then you try and leverage that as well. Hope that helps. Thank you so much, everyone, joining today. This was episode 107, 107th week. I have to dash now. I've got a couple of meetings coming up, but I wanted to say before we go, if you are in London and you are free on the 12th of September, you absolutely need to come to the Entrepreneur Business Live event. It's such a serious event this time because, well, the last one was amazing. We had an executive producer from Sky and BBC and so on. But this one, we've got an executive director from a managing director position from Visa. We've got Toph Evans himself, the endurance runner and Everest climber, who speaks on resilience and adaptability. We've got Rebecca Godfrey as well, who's worked in the big pharmaceutical corporations and is now speaking about leadership and resilience and things like that as well. Fascinating speakers in the networking session, plus free beer. If you can't make it in the Facebook group, Entrepreneur Business Group, there's a free live stream. You can watch it there. Or, of course, you could share it with someone you know in London, make sure they come along. But all details are on therichardmoore.com. You can grab your ticket there too. In the meantime, thank you so much. Cheerio to you over on Instagram. Let me say goodbye also on YouTube. And thank you very much on Facebook. Wonderful to see everyone.